All right. Last but not least, Itai.
Let's see. Great. My name is Itai Gurari. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Judicata. We are building legal research software for lawyers. And I guess what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is our work mapping the legal genome in terms of organizing all this unstructured case law that's out there. I want to start with a little introduction to the law, an example here that I think illuminates a couple of ideas that are central to what we're doing. It's a recent case called Bennett versus State Farm. It's not particularly important, but it's kind of interesting and fun. So in this case, Barbara Bennett was walking her dog one day when she was struck by a Ford Fusion that had been driven negligently. She was thrown onto the car's hood where she sustained some additional injuries in addition to getting hit. Bennett ended up suing State Farm, the driver's insurer, and she sought a declaration that she was entitled to coverage under the insurer's policy. And she argued that she was an occupant of the Fusion at the time that she was on the vehicle's hood. And she pointed to the insurance policy, which defined occupying as in, on, entering, or alighting from. So I guess we have some laughter here, so I'm going to throw it to the crowd. Who here thinks that State Farm should win? Okay, like 4 people. And Bennett? A few more. So it turned out that the district court ruled for State Farm, but the Court of Appeals reversed and held for Bennett. And the argument that the Court of Appeals used is one that probably everybody who voted for Bennett would go for, is basically, look, State Farm has chosen to define this term occupying. They've set out this string of words that means occupying, and one of them is on, and Bennett was on the car. So when I read this case, I actually opted for State Farm, and I think it was a strong indication that I made the right move to leave the practice of law. Those of you guys who would go for Bennett might have a future there. So the real reason I want to talk about the case, though, is it demonstrates an interesting idea here that the law is really about the application of legal doctrine or principles and facts. And these are sort of 2 orthogonal avenues. On the one hand, in this Bennett case, you've got principles of negligence and contract interpretation. But you also have facts. You have that Bennett was struck and thrown onto the car hood. The contract defined occupant as in, on, entering, or alighting from. Had the facts been a little bit different, like on not being in that language, the court would have gone another way. In fact, the Court of Appeals differentiated a case where the person who was struck by the car was then run over. So coming back to Judicata and our work mapping the legal genome, what we're doing is transforming unstructured case law into structured data. And the goal is to organize cases by breaking them down into their component legal principles and facts. And I'll show you a little demonstration of that visually. So we start off with a couple of paragraphs from a California case. We parse some structure, and we end up with data. Okay. And the goal is to produce something like this, where you have this is a search result for lawyers, where you have the legal principle at the top. This is a rule against employment harassment in California. On the bottom left, you have the facts that are relevant to that. So, for example, is it race harassment, sex harassment, et cetera. And on the bottom right, you've got the cases that are applying this legal principle and doing it with particular facts. And the big question, and sort of the reason that this company sort of is doing the things we're doing, the big question is, how is this transformation from unstructured input to structured data being done? How do we go about doing that? And I talk about it in terms of transformation functions. So really, you can transform the data in 2 ways. You can do it manually by having someone sitting down and reading the input and pushing out output, or you can do it automatically, having a computer do it. And the characteristics of these 2 approaches are obviously very different. People can be very slow. Computers are fast. People can be expensive. Computers are relatively inexpensive, possibly just the cost of electricity. On the manual side, you can get various performance across people, whereas if your program is written properly, it should run consistently across runs. But the one place where people make a big difference and actually have a leg up on the computers is that people can handle a broad range of data inputs. Computers, on the other hand, a little bit of noise or error can cause a large problem. A great example of that would be looking at IBM's Watson, some of the answers that it gave on Jeopardy. So diving a little bit more into these transformation functions we have on the manual side, everything from the low skilled. If you're dealing with English text, this might just be somebody who's a native English speaker. Medium skilled might be somebody who's got on-the-job training. And finally, the high skilled might be somebody who has advanced training or degree, maybe someone like a lawyer or a doctor. On the technical side, we have a couple of approaches to transforming data. On the one hand, you've got sort of the hard-coded rules or heuristics where you have a software engineer who knows what the input looks like and what it's supposed to produce and hard codes the rules to produce that. And that can be everything from, say, a regular expression that's a few lines of code to a larger text parser, something like we might use at Judicata, or something very large like a weather forecasting model where they're really modeling out the rules of physics. The other approach, and one that is pretty common today, is to look at using machine learning approaches where you have a general purpose algorithm. You feed it training data, so inputs and outputs. The computer learns what inputs are associated with what outputs, and hopefully you can feed it an input it's never seen before, and it'll predict the correct answer. So with all that sort of background into our, sort of what I want to talk about for now, which function should we use or do we use at Judicata? And the long answer is it depends on the output accuracy that's required. And this probably would apply to many companies. And the output accuracy depends on your market, your resources, and how you want to position yourself. So we're in the legal research market. There are really, I think, 4 companies that I would say matter the most here. And these are kind of laid out in terms of low quality, low cost at the bottom, high quality, high cost at the top. But really, the top 3 are at a high quality top, and Google's at the bottom. So these companies are West. They were founded in 1872, so 141 years old. They are the dominant case law publisher in the country, and they boast a staff of 800 attorney editors. They have 800 people who are reading opinions, adding structure to it, and summarizing, doing work like that. LexisNexis was launched about 40 years ago. They were the first to take cases online, and they own the Shepard Citator, which is a very important legal research tool that goes back 140 years as well. More recently, Bloomberg entered the space with a legal law offering product that was launched in 2009. It's rumored to cost $500 million. Someone here probably knows the answer if that's true. More recently, they bought BNA, which is a company that was founded in 1929 for about $1 billion. And then you've got Google Scholar at the bottom. Google launched the legal index on Google Scholar in 2009. It was the first to offer free access to cases and is, I guess, typically been manned by 1 to 2 engineers. So really almost no resources thrown at that. So Judicata has come in, and what we're doing is trying to build the highest quality legal research product of them all. And the way we're doing that is by organizing the law in terms of legal principles and facts and doing it with extremely high precision. And the reason we're doing it this way is that it's very difficult to compete with Google for free. If you're going to go in and have a product that sort of fits somewhere in between Google and West, you're going to end up with a product that's basically something like what West already has. And if you're doing that, now you're competing with a company that's been around for 140 years and has a great brand and a lot of trust. And it takes a lot of resources to go and compete on distribution. So what we decided to do was say, okay, well, we're just going to reinvent the wheel here, build up a research tool that you would start with and sort of produce in the 21st century so that you could do research in a modern way. And we're doing it on a relatively shoestring budget. We've been fortunate enough to have raised about $8 million from Peter Thiel and Coastal Ventures, and it's allowing us to do everything we want to do, but at the same time, it's not the $500 million that some of our competitors have. And so back to the question of which function to use, the short answer is everything. So because we're competing with companies that have hundreds of human lawyers doing work, we can't go in and just automate all that work. The NLP isn't quite there and may never get there. We need a lot of manual labor to do a lot of these tasks as well. But because we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars, we need to leverage technology to a very high level with very advanced technology. So what that means is we are constantly optimizing our approach. We are using the manual pieces, but then we break it down into tasks that are simpler and smaller that can be automated. And we do that by asking for each task, can this task be broken into subtasks? Can those subtasks then be automated or performed by a lower skilled person? Or then can those subtasks be broken into further subtasks? And what you end up with is this, if you thought of the big black box up there as 100% high-skilled human labor. At the bottom, we've broken down the task into something that's only 25% high-skilled human labor. The rest is automated or low-skilled labor. So an example from our development. We are, in organizing the law, we're building out an ontology of the law. So this is an organization of how is the law structured, what are all the different principles, and how do they relate to each other. Traditionally, the way that's been done is with a legal mind, a leading legal mind. So you have here Melville Nimmer. He wrote the famous Nimmer on Copyright book. Probably none of you have heard of it. But what he did was read case law for years, got a lot of training, and ended up dedicating probably a year or two to produce this vast work of law. The issue is that's not very scalable. And we don't have the resources for that. And there are also some issues in the marketplace as well. But so what we are doing is replacing Nimmer with a sequence of smaller tasks that can be performed by humans and by machines. And so our version of Nimmer looks like this, where these are 16 tasks or transformations. The ones with the black bar across the top are automated. The other ones are manual. And you can see low-skilled, medium-skilled, high-skilled, maybe a medium-sized chunk of code or a small chunk of code. And the way it works is we start in the top left, and we have this complicated case law parsing, which goes through, creates that transformation I showed you earlier, where we take text and we add sort of structured data and color to it. We then review it automatically. Then we have a low-skilled review on top of that. The next step is to do a reconciliation of the data. We do that automatically. Anywhere where we're not certain, 100% certain that the computer did the right thing, we then have a manual review, and so on and so forth, where we're constantly doing work in an automated fashion and then reviewing it manually. And at the end, we've broken down this process into something that instead of taking a year, might take 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So I want to sort of end with a basic sort of insight into how we work and what our company is about. And it's really that in creating a very high quality product in the legal space, neither great technology nor great people can do it alone. It's really about the process. So we've been spending about 2 years now building out our technology and our processes so that our great people and our great technology can do the work to generate the most accurate, granular, and valuable legal data in the world. The goal with all this legal data is then to be able to offer advanced search, analytics, and AI products for lawyers. Thank you.
Well, good. Yeah.
Okay, Tony Bear from Ovum. Get another shot. I guess my question really is that of end market, because on the other hand, you have firms that have already pretty well defined this market, especially on the high end. Then, of course, you have Google, which is for every man. So where is your niche? Where's your target?
So what we're doing is to sort of go over top of them. So the way that you would run a search right now, say you're interested in race harassment cases in California, what you would do is type in the words, harassment, race, and review the results. If you use Google or Lexis or Westlaw or Bloomberg, you're going to get about 400 results. With us, we have a factual review, and we know within each case, is it a harassment case? What type of harassment? Is it age, race, gender, et cetera? And we can narrow it down to, say, the 6 cases that are actually race harassment cases that may come up on a particular motion that you care about. So we're very precise in our organization of the law, and we're able to filter down and make possible something that couldn't be done before. So really, it'll start off as a niche. I mean, we're not going to have all the jurisdictions in the country for a long time, but it allows something to be done that couldn't otherwise be done.
Ray Prisman from here at Bloomberg. Maybe a strange question, but we've now had 2 presentations tonight about how hard it is to take big unstructured data, first from the legislative world earlier, and now from your world where it's judicial opinions, these sort of prosy long things, and then put some structure around them. And I appreciate the heroics that you're doing to organize it. It's fascinating. But is it on anyone's radar to get legislators and or lawyers to stop writing these opaque long opinions and maybe do some of that? I mean, they're writing like it's 1800s in terms of the way these things are coming out.
I mean, I think there are efforts to do that. I'm not a part of that, not for lack of caring, but I don't expect that I can move the needle. Yeah.
So what does your team look like? Because it sounds like it's a combination of people, technology, and process.
Yeah, so we're currently 12 people, 6 engineers, backgrounds, Google, Stanford. Funny statistic is 3 of our engineers, including myself, were at Google, and all 3 of us took the LSAT. But I was the only one who went to law school. Then we've got 3 lawyers as well on the legal team, and then design, BD, and operations.
And you're finding that the technology works across types of cases? I mean, is there an underlying logic, which I guess is the whole concept of Genome,
yep.
but that would work regardless of the vertical?
Yeah, I mean, what it basically comes down to is the breakdown at the very beginning, that you've got legal principles that are applied in cases, and you have facts. Those legal principles are, say you have a particular rule. Related legal principles might be interpretations of that rule. They might be exceptions to that rule. Might be the purpose of the rule. Excuse me. So there are sort of high-level organizational ways that you can think about the law, and we build our processes towards those and not to a particular area of law. So right now, everything we're doing is scalable for when we go to criminal law or torts or bankruptcy.
Hi, Jonathan Dayton, Love Crossing. I think that there's a finite universe of types of cases probably, and each case that comes through is probably related to some degree to other cases that have been out there, and probably one of the reasons why a company like Westlaw gives you so many results is because lawyers like to read and they like to kind of go through a lot of information. I mean, I think that's part of it probably. So what would stop Westlaw from, your tool starts taking off and Westlaw throws their 800 lawyers and says, well, we need a more targeted search. That'll get us there for most cases that come through. Whereas right now they're just giving a sort of a scattershot approach because, that's kind of what they can do right now.
The simple answer is that it's extremely hard, and it's not something where it's just about throwing people at it. It's about that process. So Bloomberg tried to do a lot of the things that we're doing and did not succeed. Lexis has tried to do a lot of these things and has not succeeded. It's not something where you just throw resources at it. So we could have built out a lot more data over the last 2 years, but instead we focused all our energy on producing the right processes so that quality control is not such a big issue, because if we're wrong, then nobody's going to use the product. So it's all about building out processes, and you need advanced technology to do that. So it's building up, and it's not just, okay, we see this problem on the horizon, let's throw 1,000 bodies at it and hope that it works.
All right, last couple of questions. Actually, Dan, I want to hear first.
Misha Sobolev, Exec File. You mentioned your team, but in your slide you showed that you use different levels of expertise of workers, low, mid-scale, etc.
Yep.
Where do you find them, and how do you go about training and managing churn and making sure that you get the results you're looking for?
Yeah, so we have a couple levels of skill in-house on our legal team, and then we do some experimentation with mechanical Turck in terms of low-skilled labor, and we're able to develop tasks with a high amount of sort of classification or training, so we can get people who can perform these tasks, and then we can do enough stuff in terms of getting consensus and monitoring for gold that we know pretty much what the answer is, but they're just doing really small things. So it comes down to the slides about breaking down the process. So we would never ask somebody, is this a race harassment case? But we might break that down into subtasks that are components of making that ultimate decision, and they're able to then, we basically can give those components to somebody in-house who can make that decision much more efficiently than they otherwise could. I don't know if that kind of gets to what you're saying.
Jonathan Phillip is Zurich Insurance. I was wondering, in general, in the legal industry, is there any searchable database where you could type in something like recent securities lawsuits and see a listing of settlement amounts and the size and how long it took to settle such cases?
Your best bet would be PACER for federal cases. The state, it's a wash. There's a company that sort of does that on the patent in the patent space called Lex Machina, and they do some great work there. But it's kind of hard.
Very good. Well, we are at the end of our allocated time, so thank you very much. It's terrific. And I guess that's a wrap for 2013. So again, thanks very much, everyone, for coming on a snowy day, and happy holidays. And I will see you in a few weeks. Thanks a lot.